Do I have anything in my teeth? Just anything? No. All right. We're gonna get started. Do I need that? I do need that. I do need. I still haven't figured out that lighting right there. And then I don't know what's going on with the head. Look at that. That's like all super fly. I'll assume it doesn't matter. Let's go. Good Lord, this border deal is a gigantic mess. It's a mess of a deal. And it's a mess of a deal because, well, what else was it possibly going to be? You had the Democrat from Connecticut, Chris Murphy, in on this deal. Did anybody think for a second that he could be trusted? You had Kirsten Sinema, the independent, except for the fact that she's held a line on a few things. Weren't we discussing her as a socialist just a few months ago? Then you've got Senator James Lankford. Lankford of Oklahoma. This is a guy who, when it came to a conversation regarding banking and what Janet Yellen was proposing and the threat against regional banks, he was stellar, absolutely stellar. Why would he be in favor of this legislation? For why would he think that this has a value? Well, part of this now is the greater problem. Is that you had people engaged in a conversation about this legislation before the legislation came out. There was not even a conversation that was had based on anything that was data-driven. It was all emotional. This is terrible. This is awful. And then, of course, from the Democratic side, this is a really smart piece of bipartisan legislation that Republicans have to sign immediately. Otherwise, they don't care about the border. Good gosh. Could we focus on actually what the legislation states, as opposed to where people want to go to their ideological corners? For the record, for the sake of clarity, I don't give a damn about your ideological corner. I only care if the legislation helps. By the way, if we're going to take a look at things, why not take a look at House Bill 2 that Republicans passed over 270 days ago that Senator Chuck Schumer refused to look at? If it comes from Republicans, it's no good. Stop with the nonsense. No one cares about the ideology. We care that we have a border that is protected. Tony Katz, that is me, by the way. Tony Katz today. Good to be with you. Find everything at TonyKatz.com. And, of course, the live stream going on Rumble and YouTube and X and LinkedIn and Facebook, even though Facebook is a big hot mess as well. You had people already telling you that this was a disaster. They had never read the legislation. That's crap. It's crap. It's garbage. Now, I remember I discussed last week that Representative Dan Crenshaw had said the same thing. What are we all doing? Can we wait till we read the legislation? Well, now it's been less than 24 hours that the legislation is out, but we've had some chance to read the legislation, and there are, without questions, issues here. One of the big issues is this idea of where and when do we put into effect the idea of stopping the flow across the border. If you are to believe how the legislation is written, and it's 5,000 people a day, that could get you to believing that you're talking about 1.8 million people being able to come across the border. Now, the people who support this legislation will tell you that's not it. That is absolutely not it. That you have a threshold that could be reached, and if reached, it would allow the president to shut the border down completely. Which is why I think Joe Biden was screaming about, give me the power to shut down the border. Even though he has the power. He's the president of the United States. He could do this right now. It's not even a question. It's not even a debate. He could do it as we speak. He could do this at this very moment. That he chooses not to. That he chooses not to care about the border. That he chooses not to go visit the border. And by the way, a trip to El Paso, Texas, that is not a trip to the border. He hasn't gone to the border. He just hasn't. He doesn't care about it. That much is obvious. So this idea that the 5,000 a day engages an idea that you could then shut things down, but it'd still be 5,000 people a day, people are doing the following mathematics. I'm pulling out the calculator, ladies and gentlemen. I'm pulling out the calculator. And they're saying if you have 5,000 people a day and you multiply that by 365 days, so you got 5,000, and then you multiply it by 365, you're going to get 1.825 million people. There's the number that has people concerned, and for the record, rightfully so. But let's argue that they're hearing this incorrectly. The data is being misrepresented because it's not properly understood what is in this piece of legislation. This brings us to Senator James Lankford, who put out on the X. Sometimes you used to say Twitter. Now you say X because that's the way it works. He's put out on X that this is totally misunderstood. That and I'm quoting here. The Border Emergency Authority has been the most misunderstood or maybe just misrepresented parts of the bill. He states some people have said it would mean 5,000 people a day are coming into the country every day. That is absurd and untrue. So that was Senator Lankford speaking just yesterday about this. He writes, the emergency authority is not designed to let 5,000 people in. It is designed to close the border and turn 5,000 people around. Wait a second. You're making the argument that the 5,000 number is turning those 5,000 people around. You're saying that those 5,000 don't automatically come into the country. That the 5,000 would set off the chain reaction that would allow the border to be shut down by the president, which is something that the president can do anyway. So then what are we talking about here? The Border Emergency Authority, as Lankford describes it, only lasts 3 years to force his administration to shut down the border and to give time for the next president to hire more agents and more officers. After 3 years, the emergency authority expires because we should have gained full control of our border by then. Okay. I have no reason not to take, and I know that I'm going to be in a minority here, but follow me through all the way to the end. I have no reason not to take Senator Lankford at his word. The problem is I'm actually listening to his words and they don't make sense. The 5,000 people that you're letting into the country, you're not actually letting them in? Says who? Because the legislation would read, as we have seen these pieces of it, like 5,000 people have to cross over the border before a system, a kill switch can go into effect. Wrong use of words, I apologize. And stop the flow. Now, one could argue that these 5,000 people are staying in Mexico until their cases are heard. That is possible. But that's not the way it reads for everybody. And that's one of the big questions. Where do these people stay? According to Bill Malugin over there at Fox News, he is making the argument that based on his reading of the border deal, that the remain in Mexico conversation does exist. Here's what he says. No amnesty or legalization for anyone already in the U.S. illegally. This is how Bill Malugin over at Fox News describes it. Funds an increase in ICE detention capacity to approximately 50,000 from the current 34,000. Here's where it gets interesting. at 7-day rolling average of 5,000 encounters per day, or 8,500 encounters in a single day, Homeland Security is required, feel the air quotes, required, to shut down the border and turn away anyone who crosses. No new asylum claims will be allowed, and anybody crossing will be removed. Would end the whole idea of, quote, I made it to U.S. soil, you have to process me, unquote. That would be over. Border Patrol would not process the illegal crossers, and they would be removed. No asylum claim permitted unless it's made at a port of entry. Now, here's where Mnuchin continues. Quote, this does not mean 5,000 are allowed in before this authority kicks in. Single adults would be detained. Families would be released via ATD, alternatives to detention. And asylum cases would be fast-tracked to months rather than years under a new rapid expedited expulsion system. Those who fail will be quickly removed from the U.S. Those who initially pass would be released with work authorization and 90-day supervision until final asylum claim is determined. And the shutdown authority doesn't drop until crossings decrease significantly in the days following the shutdown. If you want to tell me that Homeland Security would, based on a certain number of people, be required to shut down the border, one now asks, how does that requirement take shape if the president has full purview of the border? Wouldn't the president actually have to go about doing the thing? And do you trust the president to do the thing? I'm not just talking about Biden in this case. I'm talking about any president in this case. Thus, you know, our elections absolutely matter. The president has, and Bill Mnuchin notes this, there's a provision in the bill that would allow the president to suspend the shutdown authority. And I'm quoting here. It says, authorizes the president to suspend the border emergency on an emergency basis for up to 45 days if it is in the national interest. What happens on day 46? How would you stop him? Look, I want to see moves at the border. I want to see legislation that makes sense. I'm going over this, I'm reading this, and yes, I find the people who had all of their opinions laid out before ever reading a piece of this legislation, I am dismissing them right out. That's just worthless crap, guys. It's garbage. It's nonsense. It's completely unnecessary. It's the worst of us. It's the worst concepts among us. This legislation, to me, has a fair amount of issues. Because it seems that this 5,000 number does not, it doesn't compute. If you tell me 5,000 a day shuts down the border, and the border has seen at least 5,000 encounters almost every single day in the last 3.5 years of the Biden administration, Biden would have to shut down the border. Do I believe that would be the case? Let me make a follow-up here. Do I believe that Senator Chris Murphy, Democrat beta male Connecticut, would favor legislation that shut it down? Do I believe that Democrats would vote for a piece of legislation that would engage a shutdown of the border when it is very obvious that as a party they favor open borders? Something is amiss. Something is amiss, and we need some more time with the legislation. That's not going to stop Chuck Schumer for calling for a vote, I think, on Friday, because 370 pages is easily digested in just a few days, and why do you have to spend any more time on it? Let me give you another problem this legislation has. Funding for Ukraine and funding for Israel. Guys, I'm a Zionist. Israel has the right to exist, and Israel has the right to defend itself. Why are we having a funding conversation about Israel in this legislation? Why are we having a funding conversation about Ukraine in this legislation? And I support giving Ukraine bullets. Why is this in here? Why is this a part of the conversation? If this legislation regarding the border was so good, so valuable, so smart, so with it, shouldn't it be passed of its own accord, having nothing to do with funding anywhere else? Why would you even allow people an opportunity to say no to it because of the funding when you could get a yes because of the strength of the legislation? That in and of itself makes me think that the legislation might not be as strong as people like Senator Chris Murphy are saying. And it's very possible that Senator James Lankford is not either A, providing a full story, or B, doesn't recognize how it's going to be used against him. Oh, I think there's a lot of questions here. And I think those questions need a lot of answers, a massive amount of answers. I think we still have stuff to talk about, things we're going to learn over the next 24, 48, 72 hours. I pay no attention to the people who want to tell me no or tell me yes before they had read anything. We've started reading, and there are significant questions that we should answer. Let's go answer them. I'm Tony Katz. Guys, welcome back. Can I tell you, I don't know what I did. I know it's just me, totally focused on the hair. And I know this light puts in I'm aware. We're working on it. Guys, welcome. Good to have you here. Make sure you subscribe on Rumble and on YouTube and everywhere else. And I got to get maybe I'll get I don't know if I'll get a new mic stand. Maybe I'll just paint because you can see like the edges right there. Maybe it looks weathered, like I've been at it for a while. I don't know. I have a lot to get to, including this January 6th case being delayed. Woo-hoo-hoo. Jack Smith is going to be angry. I'm going to get to that. I've got the woke kindergarten case. I got to put that on the board. Let me get that on the board here. The board, say a little bit of what I talk about. Wait, what was that? Oh yeah, woke kindergarten. Let me just write that down. ARTEN, not din, tin, kindergarten. So we've got those things to get to. I will also have, Nikki Haley on Saturday Night Live. I know a lot of people mocked it and how ridiculous. I think it helps her. The problem is not where she needs it. It would help her in a general. Doesn't help her in a primary. Doesn't help her at all get past Donald Trump in South Carolina. Less than zero. Meanwhile, we'll get back to the radio show. So let's go make that happen, shall we? January 6th, a day that for Democrats will not live in infamy. It will just simply be talked about until it's no longer of use to them. Tony Katz. What, two on the nose? Tony Katz today. What's going on? That trial has been delayed. That trial has been delayed, and this is a good thing. That you have this judge, Tanya Chutkan, saying, look, we don't know when the Supreme Court is going to respond to this. We don't know when they're going to tell us and say to us, look, we looked at this and we're going to either honor requests from President Trump or we're not going to. So we're just going to delay this trial indefinitely and let the court do its thing. And when they're done, and by the way, this is the Trump Smith, I should say, the special counsel asking the court to rule on whether Trump can be prosecuted on charges relating to efforts to overturn the 2020 election. So you got to wait for that to happen. And what has been interesting in this is that people like Merrick Garland, the attorney general, have been saying that Jack Smith, the special prosecutor, has a right to a speedy trial. Jack Smith has no right to a speedy trial. The accused has a right to a speedy trial, but they don't have to take that right. They have the right to it. They can make the thing last as long as they want. They can throw up as many roadblocks as they choose. They can delay and deflect because they are innocent until proven guilty. America is awesome. Jack Smith is not pleased about this. Jack Smith is angry about this. Jack Smith wants things to move. Hey, let's just expedite this to the Supreme Court. Why in the world are we having delay? And Trump's going to check with this court and this appellate court and this one and that one. Boom! Right to SCOTUS. Well, SCOTUS said, sure. And then Jack Smith said, what? And now you have a delay. There is no conversation regarding these indictments that can be had without the term election interference. Because that's what's happening. 100% it is election interference to schedule these trials now. These things could have come years ago, and Jack Smith wanted this trial to start the day before Super Tuesday. That vast multiplicity of states all voting for the presidential nominee, for the Republican Party, for the Democratic Party, for other parties. You want this trial to start the day before? It's election interference. The Fani Willis case. I always called her Fannie Willis. It's Fani. Fani Willis case there in Georgia where she might go to jail for her financial improprieties. Election interference. Pick the case. You do it now, election interference. This is even guys like me who aren't Trump-trained guys 24/7, 365. Honest people can look at something honestly. All election interference. So this is a kick in the face to Jack Smith. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy, ladies and gentlemen. My God, that's just fantastic. Good. Thrilled. Overjoyed. Happy to see it. When is the trial going to start? I don't know. I could not begin to tell you. Now, some of this might depend on what the Supreme Court has to say. Supreme Court might wait until after November to make a decision, not wanting to be people who are involved in election interference. We'll see what we see. This is Tony Katz today. Major Mike Lyons up next. So I will share with you that my conversation with Major Mike Lyons, retired United States Army, specifically about how we've responded to Iran. I very much enjoyed that conversation. Happened I guess, what time is it now? An hour and a half ago. Sometimes the interviews have to happen early, so we will play it here for you. I like him. I think he's honest. I think he's clear. I think he's concise, which I greatly appreciate. I'm looking for the interview right now and can't seem to find it, which is never good. Oh, well, that's a problem. Hey, Sarah, I think I deleted it. I need you to download it and transfer it to me. Oops. Let me see if I can get this done. Hold on a second. I can't believe I did that. I think I did that. When I'm going through and I'm cleaning things up because we're downloading things, moving things. See, this is the kind of stuff. This is the kind of stuff where, you make a mistake. All right, we're going to try and get it here quickly. We'll see. We'll see what we do. The struggle is real, I swear to you. So I've got this to get to. And then I've got the fast food story regarding what's happening in California with the minimum wage. These minimum wage people, they are completely unserious. Unserious people. They don't understand and don't care about the what happens when you say, well, you got to pay $20 an hour. The business can't stay in business. They don't care. It's as if they want you to go out of business so then they can say, you see, they weren't good business owners anyway. Maybe they've been better at what they do. Ugly, ugly stuff. Also, if you're on Rumble, if you're on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like what we do. Let me see if I've got it here. And that would give me, because that would only give me like a short time. So I'm going to try and get this in. Try my best. Oh, we may not get it in time, which means it'll be a short segment there, producer Jason. Well, that's just saying if I can't get it in time, it's going to be the second segment. That'll be the long one. And this one will be a very short one, like a minute. Be like a minute. Or a minute 30. See that? Talking to producer Jason. Trying to get it all done. There it is. Hold on. Let me see. Come on. There you go. Maybe it'll work. I'm saying that our response to Iran was weak, far weaker than I actually anticipated, far weaker than I imagined, which is saying something because I wasn't expecting much. I wasn't expecting much from the administration. 3 Americans killed. I was not expecting this administration to engage in a level of strength because in engaging in a level of strength might be seen by the party, the Democratic Party, as too much support for Israel. It might be seen as, oh, you're now the warmongers, Biden administration. Besides, we're already calling you Genocide Joe because you won't stop Israel from actually stopping the terrorist threat that is Hamas, which is, of course, connected to Iran. And Iran is, of course, the ones that killed 3 Americans. You can tell me about all the fringe groups you want. This response didn't seem like much. This response seemed like a whole bunch of nothing. Tony Katz today. Good to be with you. Major Mike Lyons joins us, retired United States Army. I'm gonna share a couple of things with you in a second, sir. But first, your take to the response from the United States military. We hit strategic targets. We hit with a precision, 125 plus precision, either strikes or precision munitions were utilized. That seems to be the focus of the administration. Was this a response that said, you kill Americans, we deal with you properly?
Well, Tony, thanks for having me. I thought it was a good first response. I don't think this is the last thing that we're going to do. I think it's part of now the new deterrence campaign to try to restore the balance back to where it should be, and that is it should not be acceptable for these Shia militia groups to attack American forces that are there. So yeah, no, I think that 85 targets or so it was good. I mean, we telegraphed enough for the leaders to get out of town, and I think that should have been a better target. I mean, if we didn't get any of those leaders within the first 24 to 48 hours after they attacked Americans, it's likely we weren't going to get them. But I still think they're on our radar the second they come back into Iraq. Obviously, they're all in Iran right now someplace, but they come back into Iraq, they should be targets. So no, I'm okay with how this has started. And I'd like to see it continue. I'd like to see, for example, a no-fly zone over Iraq. I'd like to see a more detailed campaign with regard to the situation.
A no-fly zone would require far more pressure from the United States and far more engagement in the area. So I think there'll be some people who disagree with you on that one, Major. Talking to Major Mike Lyons, retired United States Army West Point graduate. But there's the idea of, and you keep hearing this conversation about proportionality. Well, they killed 3 Americans, but we can't go overboard, right? You can't do too much. Can you describe this concept of proportionality and how very often politically it's utilized incorrectly?
Sure. And it just has to do with what the response has got to be, let's say, in kind. And in this case, we traded off the lives of 3 soldiers for a very significant amount of physical damage that took place. The Iraqis claim that there were 16 killed on their side. I mean, if you're on the other receiving side of this, obviously you think that you're at war with the United States. But from a proportionality perspective, it means, let's say, staying within this sandbox of Syria and Iraq. I think that any attacks inside of Iran would increase the level of attacks. And in some cases, disproportionality as a way of deterrence works. For Israel, for example, they are disproportionate normally with regard to how they respond. But in this case, the United States, both inside of now Yemen and inside of Iraq and Syria, has fundamentally increased the attack level just a little bit, but not to the point where it's disproportional of taking out, multiple sites, attacking into Iran and really increasing what was going on there. Hey, but Tony, one more thing about the no-fly zone. I don't say that lightly. I agree with you that, in the past, that seems to be politicians throwing around, let's put a no-fly zone over Iraq. And what I mean by that is we already control the airspace. We don't have to worry about SA-7s or 300s or missiles firing our defenses out. But we must have a better control of what's flying there in those drones. And it looks like we didn't go after them before. This was an accident. As it turns out, the operators thought that the drone that hit the site was a friendly drone. So that's my point about better no-fly zone, better area with regard to controlling the airspace there. That to me is the tragedy of this whole thing, is that America.
They certainly did allow the drone in. They mistook it for possibly one of ours. Right. It doesn't change the fact that Americans were killed, and it was done by Iran. But I want to get back to this proportionality conversation, because people take proportionality as, well, they killed 3 of ours, so we have to take 3 of theirs. No, proportionality is supposed to be, how do you engage an operation to ensure the safety and security of your people and your nation? And then how do you address that operation with the proper amount of hardware and intel? So if the proper response is killing 100 members of the Iranian Guard, well, then that's the proper response. And then proportionality is ensuring that you deliver the proper amount of bombardment to make that objective come true. Not that it's 3 for 3. I think the number should be 3,000 for 3, but not everybody is on my side. Where does this administration see the idea of proper response?
Well, let's also kind of talk both proportionality and deterrence. So, for example, we already have a proportionate advantage over our enemy, just our equipment alone. From what you just said, I mean, we normally protect our forces. That, to me, was the greatest tragedy in this whole situation, is that we didn't protect our forces. And so normally, by everything we do, United States power and just the fact, logistics. Look at that base, for example, in Jordan. It's got to be one of the most austere places on the planet. the fact that we can get in there and keep soldiers fed, watered, and work missions, and they're working with Syrian defense forces and doing lots of different things, just shows the level of U.S. superiority and might. But deterrence, I think that's what you're talking about. And because that's about consequences. That's about making sure that if you do something, that there's going to be such a grave consequence. So that's kind of where they go together, proportionality with deterrence. And again, we're not sure we're there yet. I think it's going to take time, whether the Shia militia groups know that there's going to be a greater consequence for attacking U.S. forces.
Talking to Major Mike Lyons, retired United States Army. Part of a response is to send the message of don't do this again, and not only to those who engage the attack, but those who might be looking from the outside. As a matter of message being sent across borders, does this response tell anybody, ooh, the United States is serious? Or how many rounds would there have to be before people thought the United States was serious?
Well, I think we're waiting to see what's happening, right? What's happening back channel with Iran to the United States right now? What specifically is going on there? So, like for example, we saw the Shia militia groups now attack a Syrian group, a Syrian Defense Force group that's working with the United States in combating ISIS. And so, perhaps this is what the Shia militia groups are doing now. They're not going to necessarily go after U.S. forces. You saw KT Hezbollah basically say that they were going to cease military operations, but that's not to say they won't attack other groups that are aligned with Americans. Now, this goes to show maybe that the Iranians don't have any kind of say or sway over what those Shia militia groups are doing. I'm not trying to give any benefit of the doubt here, but the bottom line is that really might be the case. You know, these kinds of authoritarian governments don't control things that they would like to control. They have their own inside issues. They have their own challenges keeping the power as it may be. So I think that we're going to see a little bit of a pause here before I think more targets come to play. But I do believe those targets will be more the leadership when they start coming back to Iraq to try to lead some of these organizations.
Let me share some of this with you. This was Jake Sullivan, the National Security Advisor, doing, of course, the Sunday shows. And we'll start with Face the Nation over there on CBS.
So the U.S. officially has not assessed that Tehran directed the attack. But has Tehran done anything to rein in the militias that they fund and arm?
Well, we know that Iran is behind these militia groups. They train them, they fund them, they arm them, as your question suggests. And they do have influence with them. And I can't sit here today and tell you that Tehran has shifted its policy. What I can tell you is what the United States' approach is going to be, which is that if we continue to see threats and attacks from these militia groups, we will respond to them and we will hold those responsible accountable.
Let's start with the step one of this. There is no one seriously considering or engaged in a serious conversation that these groups aren't actually Iran, proxy militia groups, however you want to call it. This is Iran dictating the attack on American forces. No one's questioning that, are they?
I think they are. I think they're saying, you know, dictating is one thing, and, you know, causation, correlation. Obviously, they've been funded, trained, and set up by the Iranian government. But whether they're actually saying, okay, here's the target set that you're going after, you know, who knows? I think that we have to see if whether that's the case or not. If we can show proof for that, that's different through intel. But I don't think that is the case. I do believe that these Shia militia groups work off of intent, commander's intent, as we call it in the military. And what that means is the Iranian government says, go do whatever you can to keep America on their toes and to try to harass and interdict as much as you can on American forces there. Now, who's to say that they've taken that a step too far? They say they send these one-way suicide drones. We don't know how many they've sent in the past. We've just intercepted them as well. So I think that's more or less what's happening here. I'm not saying that the Iranians are specifically giving them targets, but I'm saying they've given them the intent to do what they're doing.
So I want to make sure we were clear about that, because I certainly believe it's possible that the Iranians were giving targets. Your point is they're given basically a level of carte blanche, but it's still the Iranians making this happen. This isn't some rogue group making this rogue decision out there well out of bounds of what the Iranian authority is. The authority is go get them, Tiger.
Yeah, I mean, it's more than just an invisible hand. I'd give you that. It's by intent. They've given them all this equipment. They've given them the high sign, let's say. But the bottom line is they're not telling them, okay, on this date at this time at 3:00 in the morning, we're going to attack Americans at this position. I'm not even sure that Shia militia groups have got that level of dexterity or that level of precision with what they're doing. And again, that target was well outside, was hundreds of miles away of where those Shia militia groups were. That's just why it was a drone, because it's pretty hard to send a drone from a couple hundred miles away and basically hit a tent in the middle of the desert.
Let's get to a part two. This was, again, Jake Sullivan, National Security Advisor, this time on CNN.
And to defend our troops, that's what he's going to continue to do going forward.
You said it's just the beginning, and I just want to clarify. That means that there will be more strikes coming in the next few days?
What it means is that we will take further action. I'm not going to obviously describe the character of that action because I don't want to telegraph our punches, but there will be further action.
Inside Iran, would you rule that out at this point?
Look, sitting on a national TV program, I'm not going to rule in and rule out any activity anywhere. What I am going to say is that the president will do what he thinks needs to be done. And again, reinforce the point that he's going to defend our forces and also that he is not looking to get into a war.
Well, he may not be looking to get into a war, but as I have argued, Major, the war is here. Iran is at war with us, even if we have yet to figure out we're at war with Iran. Talking to Major Mike Lyons, retired United States Army. But to this point, the question that Dana Bash was asking on CNN, well, I cannot envision the situation in which Joe Biden has the resolve to put an end to the Ayatollah, the mullahs, the hardliners, the clerics, and let's start calling Iran Persia again and engage some trade and see a free world. Is there any position that is taken by the U.S. military to say the next hit is on Tehran and hard?
I think that it's significant if that's the case. I'm sure we have targets there we can always go after. Perhaps if we get proof that cruise missiles leave Iranian territory and hit American forces and have a mass casualty event, I mean, that would maybe be a scenario that would happen. But again, that is a very big step up with regard to escalation. And, we wouldn't, if we go to war with Iran, we're not winning anything from the sky. I mean, what does that even mean? I mean, we're having a hard enough time trying to fend off the Houthis, and keeping them at bay in the Red Sea. So I think that's all part of this situation. That no one wants to. They don't want to either. The Iranians want the United States out. That's for sure. Diplomacy has clearly failed there, but we just at this point need to get them to stop attacking Americans on the ground. Well,
that's not going to stop if they feel that it's a stratagem that provides them some level of value. And certainly they can argue that the killing of 3 Americans provides them some value. No?
Yeah. And it's how they operate. It's 1,000 cuts. They start with this low grade retro irregular warfare is what they do. And we respond conventionally. But again, if it can tip over somehow there in the Middle East, if it can tip. So, for example, the Kurds still remain an enemy of the Iranians as well. They're considered separatists. The Iranians have attacked them over the past 3 months. The Iranians have problems on all their borders, their southern borders in Baluchistan. You saw them attack into Pakistan, separatist groups there. So just, conflict is the nature of the Middle East. And that's why the United States is going to continue to be there, at least to try to contain it, keep it in a sandbox. And unfortunately, commanders are going to expect losses at times.
Major Mike Lyons, retired United States Army. I appreciate you taking the time to be with us. There is more to get to. I'm Tony Katz, and this is Tony Katz Today. Much better. Welcome back. You see? See, we are learning right there. I'm a fan of Major Lyons. I think that he's clear. He's concise in the understanding. I would love to see him break out of his shell a little bit more and get a little more into the kind of the personal of where he'd like things to go. But these days I appreciate somebody who just gives you, okay, here's what it means, and here's how the administration might look at it, and here's how others look at it, and here's the historical perspective. There is something to that. Of course, the Grammys took place last night. I've got a story about that because music used to be better, right? How old do I sound where I'm saying that music used to? It was better. This I don't know. And then if you didn't catch that piece, that segment on CNN about why all of this lawlessness happens in New York and not Florida, that is precious. Absolutely precious. I have got that for you as well. So we've got a short coming back to the radio show here, and then we've got the long break. You'll be able to, I don't know, stretch, maybe grab a drink, maybe fall in love. I'm not here to judge, kitten. That's not what I do. And then we'll be back. Then we'll be back to it. So I hear you there, producer Jason. You cannot hear producer Jason, but soon that'll all get taken care of, and you will be able to hear producer Jason. That will be perfection, kitten. Here we go. Coming back to it.
This is where I think Joe Biden's experience plays to America's strength. Joe Biden's experience in terms of keeping our allies in the region. The fact that our take back against the Houthis was a 9-nation coalition, particularly with our British allies taking part in terms of planes being launched. But I think this is the challenge. If there was an easy answer on this, but I obviously our pushback against these militia groups prior to the attack in Jordan was not sufficient, and he is ratcheting things up. And we've heard over the weekend that these strikes are not over, and I think there probably will be need for additional strikes.
That's Senator Mark Warner of Virginia talking about Biden's experience. Wouldn't Biden's experience have explained to him that you need to be proactive in preventing these kinds of attacks as opposed to reactive after American troops are killed, because strength is the only thing that the Iranians and the mullahs understand? Only thing when we're talking about the Midwest that they understand. Wouldn't the experience have taught him that? No. But somehow he's got the experience for this moment. Maybe his lack of knowledge brought us into these more violent and dangerous moments across the globe. I think that's the way voters look at it. Speaking of the voters, I've got more coming up. Oh, and I do. Oh, specifically black voters. Oh, I have much to get to. It's just something we've been talking about for, I don't know, years. And now you're hearing other people talk about it. Guys, we've got the break until the radio show comes back. Stay right here. We've got more to get to.
Clearly, when you have the full force of the federal Department of Justice coming after you, when they have called witnesses before a grand jury, when they have made allegations that, as Bill Barr says, are very serious, you have an uphill fight for any defendant. So nothing I've said is a prediction of an outcome. It's really that there's a process that has to take place here, and that process will challenge a lot of the things that are in the indictment. And I think we need to let that play out. We should not take it as a foregone conclusion that the indictment is everything we need to know. This poses a very serious threat. I think I said that on a prior show with you, that two things can be true at the same time, and they appear to be true. That Donald Trump has been unfairly targeted for 7 years by every level of law enforcement. They have subjected him to a scrutiny that really nobody else has been subjected to. They have been trying to find a crime that he committed. It appears that some of the things in the indictment were things they found out as part of their investigation. So they wouldn't have been known but for the investigation. And those are all true. It's terribly unfair to our nation as a society to have an individual targeted and have their life subject to scrutiny in search of a crime. At the same time, we live in the real world, and we live in the reality that whatever the feds found by virtue of that politically tainted investigation, they found. The evidence is going to be it. And some of it, and many people have commented on this, is that Donald Trump appears to have handed them what they've been looking for 7 years.
The whole purpose of indicting now is to see how much pressure you can put on him, how much you could squeeze him to give up this, that, and the other. This guy is the sacrificial lamb to trying to get Trump. I mean, from an outsider looking in, holy cow, is that an ugly thing to do to a guy?
Yeah, I mean, but that happens all the time in prosecutions, in investigations. They try to squeeze somebody. They try to tell them, look, you can either help us and tell us what you know, or you're facing 25 years in jail. And 99.9% of people will succumb to that pressure. Happens all the time, whether it's good or bad, ethical or not. It happens all the time. It's the choice defendants have to make. So it seems to be, they don't really want to put, Trump's body man who moved boxes in jail. Maybe they do want to, but that's not the point of this whole indictment. The point is to get him to flip, to get him to give them more than they already have. And the fact that they felt the need to name him and to indict him and to try to flip him may be an indication they need a little bit more than they actually have.
Riley Gaines is one of those people. All she was doing was swimming and minding her own business. Being a champion and minding her own business. Trying to succeed and minding her own business. And then Leah Thomas decided, I'm going to swim too, except Leah Thomas is a man, as we've discussed on this program many times. And Riley Gaines said, this is not going to work for me. And for engaging in open and honest and clear conversation, Riley Gaines became famous. And I don't know if you feel it's for the right reasons or the wrong reasons. Tony Katz, good to be with you. Riley Gaines joins us right now. The conversation. You know her work as an NCAA swimmer, and I assume the people in my beloved Indianapolis are listening very intently to this conversation. It's good to be with you. It's good to see you here.
Absolutely.
I mean, we can discuss the story, but I'm much more curious about the human element.
Absolutely.
What is it like to go from somebody who was regarded as a swimmer, and a very good one, to being someone who in some circles is glorified as the last truth teller the world has ever seen, and in other circles as the worst bigot human being who ever lived? Talk to me about how this last year has gone.
My life this past year has totally changed from the direction that I thought I had planned to go in. I was supposed to be in dental school this year, but I realized it would be a disservice to myself, to the female athletes who fought relentlessly for Title IX, to the present female athletes who are currently dealing with this injustice, and of course to the future generation of female athletes who don't yet understand the implications of allowing men to infiltrate into women's sports and spaces, to not continue to use my platform and my voice.
So I want to take it a step back, because I didn't know about the dental school thing. Why would it be so bad to become a dentist? Why would that be? Aren't you allowed to still live your life the way you see fit? But, I mean, you can do that if you choose.
Absolutely.
But you think that this is the better path?
To me, I understand that dental school will always be there, but the relevance and the importance behind this issue is something that needs fighting now. And exactly like you said, I was I feel as if I was thrust into this position. I had no idea this would gain the traction and the media attention that it really has by simply saying there are two sexes. You can't change your sex, and there are biological differences between the two sexes that are evident and significant when it comes to men and women playing sports or anything that requires sheer strength or athleticism against each other.
In your conversations with those who want to make the claim that Leah Thomas is a woman, people like myself, people like my mother, people like millions out there say, well, this is really abusive towards women. This
Absolutely.
is about subjugating women. This is about discarding women. There is a lot of misogyny.
Sports is not about your gender identity. Sports doesn't care about your feelings. Never once when I was waking up at 4:30 in the morning to swim did swimming stop and ask me, hey, can you do this today? Are you okay? They don't care about your feelings. Sports is not about humanity. Sports relies on your biology. It relies on your physical talent. It relies on the work that you put in. To be totally blunt with you, especially at the elite level to which we were competing at, it's about winning. And if it wasn't about winning, players wouldn't get cut and coaches wouldn't get fired.
And welcome back. Good to be with you. I thought I fixed the hair thing. I didn't, and I don't know. I don't know what's gone. The whole thing is nutty. Honestly, I don't think I should do this again. I don't think I should. I just there. Now everything's great. Guys, Tony Katz, good to be with you. Don't forget to subscribe on Twitter and on, well, it's X, and on Rumble and on YouTube and on LinkedIn, or follow if you don't subscribe. And look, if you want to do it on Facebook, that's fine. But Mark Zuckerberg sucks, so I can't advise on that one right there. And watching him, you know, in this last hearing, I'm like, I thought he was getting hit with things that clearly they want to do something about. It's just not easy to do something about. I think the hit for him is always, look what you did to free speech. You absolutely despicable person. I guarantee you that I will be the only person who gets into this conversation regarding black voters. And I know this to be the case because far too many on the political right are too afraid to have a conversation for fear that they're going to get called a name. They're afraid of saying words. And this is certainly true of elected officials. However, there's a conversation here, 60 seconds. I hear you, producer Jason, regarding wealth, regarding taxation, regarding where the voter is, that the Republican is just, they're just beyond afraid. Beyond afraid. And it all starts with this from 50 Cent. And I'll explain what that is and what that's about coming up. Make sure you subscribe. We're going to get back to the show. You know, we're connected to the radio show. It's heard all across Indiana. We're working on all across the country. We got some great announcements coming. I weirdly, I think the announcement comes April 1st, which is April Fool's Day. It's not meant to be. It's not meant to be that way. I promise. I promise. So we're getting back to it. Keep it right here. We got this going on. There's a story that flows into a conversation that only we have ever had. And this is a story of Black Americans and wealth. And I know that many people, probably including my sponsors, are very concerned right now. Very worried right now. What is Tony Katz going to say? That's me, by the way, Tony Katz. Tony Katz today. What's going on, everybody? Find it all at TonyKatz.com. For those of you who know me, for those of you who listen to the show, or maybe just catching up with it for the first time, catching up with the live streams on Rumble and LinkedIn, Facebook, and X and YouTube, honesty means never having fear. You address something properly, you address something correctly, and you don't have to worry about what people are going to say about you. Force them to debate the facts on the ground. And one of the facts that we have been engaging, and I've had this conversation, now I'm on the record, go back and check, it's okay by me, kitten, for 2 years, maybe longer, because I may have been engaging this before COVID. The Republican Party is the party of stupid. Now, I'm on the record saying that my whole career. I've got over a decade referring to the Republican Party as the party of stupid. Don't get me wrong, I'm a conservative, and I find myself, of course, voting with the Republicans. I'm not a Republican, I'm a conservative. There's a basis for my theories. But I have been wondering aloud, why is it that the Republican Party has not gone after black voters across America on the sole issue of wealth? I am on record discussing the fact that this is going to be the first generation of black Americans in a large measure to have wealth that they will leave to their children. Why in the world aren't Republicans doing more to help black Americans keep their money, which in turn would help all Americans keep their money? But that's neither here nor there. As a matter of a targeted conversation, everything that black Americans are told is that Republicans are bigots, Republicans are racist, Republicans hate them. Republicans want you to keep your cash, or at least conservatives do, so why not go say so? Go ask to speak in a black church and discuss this exact issue. What are you afraid of? Well, they're Republicans, and they're afraid of the words that may come out of their mouth because they know that they don't have it. The greatest problem Republicans have is they don't have the ability to just speak, to share a thought, to share an idea, to engage some passion, to grab somebody where they're sitting and excite them to a place of, my gosh, if I don't vote for this person, I'm going to lose my head. The only guy who does it well is Trump. He does. He does. He gets people where they live, and and never mind the insanity of some of the things he says, and never mind the weird wordplay and other things that he says. He does connect with people where they sit. This will be the first generation of black Americans who will have wealth to leave to their children and to their grandchildren. And why in the world are Republicans not focused on this? Give an example. The story is that the rapper, the mogul, the guy who talks a lot about money, 50 Cent, he said this: maybe Trump is the answer. Why in the world would he say such a thing? Why in the world would 50 Cent say that Trump is the answer? Well, it could have to do with this story right here. New York City launches a $53 million program to hand out prepaid credit cards to migrant families. They can use it for food or baby food. I think they can use it for clothing. But they have to sign an affidavit that they'll only use it for these proper things. Otherwise, they're off the program. They're not thrown out of the city. They're not thrown out of the country. They're just thrown out of the program. These cards would give a family of four approximately $1,000 each month. This brings us to 50 Cent saying maybe Trump is the answer because he's discussing the misuse of taxpayer money. Yes, this is a misuse of taxpayer money. Just like if we're going to discuss giving people homes, you're in the country illegally and we provide you shelter before a veteran. We do not provide shelter to anyone coming into the country until all homeless veterans who want a shelter because sometimes there are mental issues at play and you can't get them to go to a shelter or go to a home. Even you can beg and plead. They don't have it in them. I mean, if we're going to discuss mental issues, we have to discuss the fact that that is true. There are some people who you can't help and some people who don't want help. These are the facts. But we don't have a homeless veteran until, we don't satisfy or provide for anybody in the country illegally, or anybody claiming asylum, or anybody coming to the country legally, until we provide for all homeless veterans who want a home. I think that's a fine way to go about these things, because yes, I do rank them, and homeless veterans come first. Of course they should come first. Anybody who says otherwise, I think, is laughable and certainly un-American. Americans come first, homeless veterans come first. It seems rational to me. To this end, you see people saying, this is not where my money should go. But now you see it from 50 Cent. Oh my gosh, he's a traitor. No. 50 Cent is talking about his money. Just like you are. I don't know if you're black, I don't know if you're white, I don't know if you're Asian, Hispanic, gay, straight, Jewish, Christian, Muslim. I have no idea. You are focused on your life and what you provide to your kids. This brings us to a piece that MSNBC did, where they were talking to black men in a barbershop. Right? It's if we're talking about it culturally, a kind of hangout ground where the serious issues get discussed. The barbershop. That's why LeBron James has the show. For me, it's a cigar lounge. Right? I'm not every day in the barbershop, even though the hair is, perfect. Even when I have problems with it, it's still perfect, people. It is what it is. Your jealousy is noted. So the barbershop is this place where the conversations get had. And so MSNBC went to the barbershop. This was their edit, part of the conversation they were having.
I'm trying to grow my business. As far as Biden, I haven't seen Biden really care about business like that. And my concern is having my business so that I can build generational wealth, so my kids can see and have something to take upon when I'm not here.
You're hearing that too, that there are some people in your orbit who are either voting for Donald Trump or considering it?
For sure. A lot of my friends are obviously my age, so we're a little younger. We've only voted once, for a president. And Trump is kind of all we know. And they're kind of Trump and Biden. They're like, well, we were broke with Biden. We weren't with Trump. And that's kind of the only thing that I'm hearing over and over again, is that, well, Trump, we had money.
With Trump, we had money. Well, I mean, they're right. The economy was better under Trump. Things are not good now. They continue to not be good. Should we even check where the market is? I'll check where the market is. Here's a little CNBC action. Oh, the market's down 252. The Dow is down 252. The NASDAQ is down 16. And why is that? A worry about rate cuts. Because maybe they won't come the way that the Fed promised they would in December. Funny, I know a show that was talking about the fact that that was a lie from the beginning. I hear that guy, excellent hair. They had money under Trump. True. But that's not the story. The start of that clip was the story.
I'm trying to grow my business. As far as Biden, I haven't seen Biden really care about business like that. And my concern is having my business so that I can build generational wealth, so my kids can see and have something to take upon when I'm not here.
You're here.
That's the entire story. That is the election. That's every election. And the Democratic Party can't deliver on that. They cannot deliver on that because they don't believe in generational wealth, unless, of course, they're Nancy Pelosi. No. For the elected official, they believe in generational wealth. For you, why aren't you paying your fair share? But this guy wants to leave to his kids. And the Republican Party should be all over that, because that's exactly what they should want. Black Americans are in a place to be able to leave generational wealth, what kind of damn fool isn't speaking to them about this exact issue? We take it to education, and I've discussed that, for example, in my beloved Indiana, you got to take 2 years or 3 years of a foreign language. I think it's 2. Why does that matter? I'm not arguing that Spanish doesn't have an importance in today's world, or maybe another language. But you know what language matters most? Economic literacy. How to understand how to balance a checkbook, to understand what certain economic or investing terms mean. That is far more important than Spanish. I have an app that'll translate the Spanish, but I need to understand how my money works for me. You have got the governor, Eric Holcomb in Indiana, saying that we should really require coding for kids in school. I'm not saying that coding isn't important. You know what's more important? Managing a checkbook, balancing a checkbook, understanding a budget, what your budget says about you and what it is that you value, which is actually a line from Joe Biden. Joe Biden talks about the fact my father always told me, who knows if his father ever said anything to him? Show me a man's budget and I'll show you what he values. Well, it's true. What are you actually spending your money on? Are you fully aware of what you're spending your money on? There are 9,000 apps out there to track how many ways you're paying Netflix so you don't overpay them or double book. Or how about that gym membership you don't ever use anymore, or this or that you subscribe to the other. Teaching kids how to look for this, how to manage this, how to ensure the protection of their money, their hard-earned money. That's what we should be focused on. Because that leads directly to this business owner saying that he wants to leave wealth to his kids and grandkids. That's the election. And Republicans are, yes, too stupid to understand it, too afraid of having the conversation. They're scared. They don't know how to have this conversation. They don't know how to rationally say, that guy's absolutely right. Hey, here are my policies to make it easier. Vote for me. Vote for my party. We'll make it easier. Yeah, they're going to call you a traitor, but you're going to take care of your grandkids. Here you go. These are the policies. By the way, this is absolutely what we believe, because we believe that you are the best arbiter and decision maker for your money, not us, the government. You should be able to keep more of your money, and government should not take your money. Democrats think government knows what's best for your money. They will take your money, then they'll redistribute it as they see fit in some guise of fairness. But it isn't fair to you because you're working your ass off to be able to take care of your grandkids. You know what I say? They're your grandkids. It's your money. You go take care of them, kitten. There you go. Republicans can't do that. Republicans have no capacity, no ability to do that. They don't have the brains to do that. This it was MSNBC, by the way. They are telling you how to win. They're handing it to you. Bloop, there you go, kitten. There's the win. How could this possibly be so hard? How many more ways do you need to see it? They're giving it to you. They're giving you the whole damn thing. Every last bit of it, they're just handing to you. People will tell you what it is they want. People will tell you what it is that's important to them. Not media, people. Is it clear and obvious that there's a fair amount of America that wants to ensure that abortion is legal? Absolutely true. The political right learned that one. I don't know what some of them are going to do about it, but that's the reality. People want to leave their kids and grandkids a better life because that part of the American dream is alive, it's well, and it's kicking ass. So let them. Help them. Let them. The Republicans will let me down on this, but I'll keep trying. I will keep trying to make this a subject they focus on. I'm Tony Katz. Guys, welcome back. Waiting on the radio show to come back as well. Is it video from Trump? Yeah, it was an interview that Trump did, I think, with Maria Bartiromo. So I've got that to share. Nikki Haley was on Saturday Night Live, and some people being totally dismissive. I would not say that is the right way to go about this. Then I've got the fast food story. And don't I have something else? I thought I had something else. It'll come to me. It will come to me. And then I've got some angry dudes on the socials. Look, I got to lift my head up. Republicans know that their base doesn't know what bipartisan means. So they're going to twist this however much Trump directs them to. He's talking about the border deal. When you see people saying, well, Trump's directing the party to do this and Trump's directing the party to do that, I don't argue that there aren't parts of the party that follows. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that if that is your de facto to all things, it's an unserious argument. And we're going to talk about being in lockstep. Have you ever seen any of the Democrats step out of line? Never happens. They all 100% vote 100% the same way, 100% of the time. Yet somehow that's not seen as always following what Barack Obama wants, always following what Nancy Pelosi wants. It's only when Republicans do it. It's a bunch of garbage. It lacks a seriousness that I think is quite necessary. But then again, if they were serious, they wouldn't be progressives, now would they? We're coming back to the show. I've got this from Trump coming up right now. Keep it here. Donald Trump, he is the president. Well, he was the president. He wants to be the president. And for some people, he still is the president. He was on with Maria Bartiromo over there on Fox Business, and he has got you thinking now about Iran and a nuclear weapon.
Iran had no money to give to Hamas or Hezbollah. They had no money. And they were all going out of business. All these terror outfits were going out of business. I said, anybody that does business buys oil, because that's the big deal. Essentially business, but oil in particular. Anybody that buys from Iran will do no business with the United States. Everybody stopped. They were selling almost nothing. They were almost out of business. They would have had a deal with me within 2 weeks after the election. Now, the deal is a very simple deal, no nuclear weapon. They're going to have a nuclear weapon in the next 60 days. And once they have a nuclear weapon, it's a whole different story. It's a whole different negotiation.
I don't know about the next 60 days, but we certainly could say as follows. Anybody who thought the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the JCPOA, sometimes referred to as the Iran nuclear deal, was going to keep Iran from getting a nuclear weapon, that person was a purposeful fool. Purposeful, willful fool. I'm not quite sure how it can be seen any other way. Tony Katz today. To this, President Trump is absolutely right. Without question, absolutely right. Now, the Grammys were last night. And the Grammy Awards are not something normally that would get any play whatsoever. But a funny thing happened. There was actually some good music and some good stories. One of those stories was Tracy Chapman, who was, well, excellent.
You got a fast car. I wanted to get you anywhere. Maybe we can make a deal. Maybe together we can get somewhere. Any place is better. Starting from zero, got nothing to lose. Maybe we'll make something. Be myself, I got nothing to prove.
It is her first time playing in
You got a
public
fast car.
in over 2 decades. So it's as long as Fast Car. Came out in 1988. Luke Combs is the guy who made the remake.
Cross the border and into the city, you and I can both finally see what it means to be living.
And the song, like, went to number one on the country chart. This happened. And so she wasn't at the Country Music Awards as she was being honored there. At the Grammys, she shows up. Look, generationally, nobody is writing songs as deep and as soulful as Fast Car. No, it's not happening. I mean, don't get me wrong. It might be happening, but it's not happening from those who you see getting the awards. And the place went nuts. The place was singing along. People were actually watching at home. They're finally sharing something worthwhile about the Grammys as opposed to some ridiculous protest. I think Tracy Chapman's going to go on tour. I don't know. But if she did 7 or 17 dates, they'd sell out. I'm Tony Katz. I mean, it was good. I don't know if you can hear that. I can hear it. I apologize for that. I have more coming up, including the Nikki Haley stuff. We're going to go over every single bit of it. It's wrong to say that it wasn't helpful. It's just wrong to think it's going to help her win the nomination. I have got that story happening. Keep it here. Back here we are. Welcome, guys. Just talking to producer Jason. And I know, like, they show up. A new studio, I don't think that'll happen. The lighting is going to be better in that studio. Roof is on. The membrane's on. Now the roofing goes on, and then the siding happens, and they'll start doing the interior, which is just a crap ton of electric work. Because we're just need the power, need the cable outlets everywhere to be able to connect myself all the way around. Because we'll have video side and we'll have the radio side, and it's gonna be good. Oh, it's gonna be so good. All right, we are coming back. Don't forget to subscribe. They're on Rumble or on YouTube. You could do it on Facebook, but Facebook sucks. They do. They're just terrible. If you got questions, ask them. I'll gladly answer. more than happy to do so. When are we coming back? 30 seconds? All right. We'll come back in 5 seconds. Even better. Thank you, producer Jason. All right. A lot of people commented last week about this CNN clip. It's really something else. When two CNN hosts, by the way, did you see that they blew up the morning show this morning? They really want nothing to do with the Chris Licht moment in CNN history. He was the CEO. He was the guy in charge, and he was making the changes, and he's the guy who got rid of Brian Stelter, and then he's the guy who got rid of Don Lemon, but first gave Don Lemon the morning show with Poppy Harlow and Caitlin Collins. This was going to be, because he's the guy who's done Good Morning America. He was going to make this work and make this happen. It was going to be the centerpiece of everything, but you can't work with Don Lemon, which is weird because he announced he's coming to X and people are cheering him. I'm like, oh, well, this could get really interesting. By the way, I don't know Don personally, but years ago I'd done his show a few times and he was always nice enough. But he, over the last couple of years, engaged in commentaries that were sizzling hot garbage. Tony Katz. Tony Katz today. What is going on? Find everything going on at TonyKatz.com, would you? Become a supporter over there. Would greatly, greatly appreciate it. Subscribe on Rumble, rumble.com/Tony Katz. Be sure to subscribe. So they just blew up that show, and they're increasing the early morning show by an hour, and then the midday show, they're adding another hour to it. So, yeah, they're getting rid of Chris Licht all together, all gone, all finished, all good. But people were noticing last week as they were taking a look at these cops attacked by these illegal immigrants in New York. These illegal immigrants who then were able to get out of jail, and they're giving everybody the finger. Turns out they may have gotten on a bus and left for California or somewhere else. Nobody knows where they are. It also turns out that before they attacked the cop, they had assaulted a store owner. But no, they're just looking for a better life. That's all. They just want a job. Nothing more, nothing less. Yes, I am mocking the lefties who say that. I am mocking them directly to their face. I am mocking them, and these people, they flat out deserve 100% the mocking. They deserve it.
These people.
What was that again?
These people.
That's what I thought you said. They deserve all the mocking. They're not everybody just looking for a better life and a job. Some of them are destructive and dangerous people. And I don't think you should let them in the country.
A bit late for that.
Well, maybe, but I think we can still fix the problem. What can I say? I'm a guy who is not naive. I'm an optimist. That's the word I'm looking for. Optimist. So they're having this conversation about violence in New York and what's been happening because of all these illegal immigrants that the Biden administration has allowed into the country. And well, you gotta wait for the end and listen for the silence.
The back. You don't touch our police officers. You don't touch anybody. Thank you, everybody.
I mean, we're hearing a change when it comes to immigration in general from President Biden on down. To hear her talk about that, it is also directly related to the fact that these were police officers. Does that have any impact? Does that change anything?
Well, it's so complicated because, you're a New Yorker. You move through the city every day as I do. We see these people. We touch these people. They're out looking for work. They're delivering our food. They're at the gas stations and the car wash. These are people who came in waves, 170,000 probably to New York City. But within that group, this hardworking, throngs of people in search of hope and a better life, there is this 1%er, criminal element that looks at a different opportunity here. These individuals, I went over their rap sheets yesterday, multiple charges, grand larceny, robbery, attempted robbery, grand larceny. This particular crew operated on mopeds and scooters. They were doing organized retail theft. They were doing snatches on the street. iPhones, iPads, clothing, so on and so forth. One of them that they are still seeking has 10 charges on one day because he's part of a pattern that's been going on. And I'm looking at the dates that their arrest started, which is probably close to when they got here. They've only been here a couple of months. So what the detectives are telling me is they have crews here that operate in New York, do all their stealing, then go to Florida to spend the money and then come back. And I'm like, well, why don't they just stay and steal in Florida? And they said, because there you go to jail.
Oh.
Wow. Great reporting. Keep us posted on this.
I'm sorry. That's unbelievable. If you do the crime there, you go to jail. Oh. So you're saying there's a consequence for the action. You're saying that if someone commits a crime, no, don't give me a hint. I can do it. If someone commits a crime, they go to jail for committing a crime. That's unbelievable. The dumbfounded expression on the faces of this CNN hosts. Oh, precious. Absolutely precious. Somebody's asking me, have I heard Tucker Carlson's talk with Brett Weinstein on the subject of the border and what's happening? It's an invasion. I'm sorry. With all due respect, nobody has discussed Article 4, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution more than yours truly. Listen, I love that you love Tucker. But with all due respect, just because he said it doesn't mean it's the first time it was said. That's like saying Candace Owens is the only black conservative out there. That is so not true as to be believed. Do I have the audio of Candace Owens saying that the CIA started Hollywood? I'm not saying every now and then I won't agree with her. I'm saying lately, and when I say lately, for a long time now, please don't tell me that that's the leadership I should be following. Lots of people having lots of good conversations. I get Tucker's popularity. Oh, and as for whether or not Tucker is in Russia and did an interview with Vladimir Putin, because that has been a social media conversation for the last few hours. I don't know. It's possible. And if Tucker did an interview with Putin, man, you want to talk about like poking the bear and see he's a plant. And then, of course, I guess it would depend on what's in the interview and everything else. You do interviews, right? Interviewers do interviews. They talk to people, even people who are, awful. So I did it happen? I don't know. If it happened, what got said, I don't know. But I think it's really important that, I'm glad that Tucker is having that conversation. Brett Weinstein is the professor who, of course, they tried to cancel for not bowing down to the ideology. And he wanted to know what was actually happening. How are people making this trek from Central and Southern America? My goodness, how do you get through the Darien Gap? So he went to see how that happens and how that works and just how impossible it all is. Yet it's happening to the tune of hundreds of thousands of people each and every year. This dangerous, dangerous trek. And yes, you don't need to be wearing a uniform for something to be an invasion. It's very obvious that we have an issue. It's very obvious that the border is under threat. And I don't know if this new border legislation is really going to help. Based on a first cursory glance of some things I did today, I think there are more questions than there are answers. And I think that anything that states that at a certain number of people, the border can be shut down, that is this idea that somehow Biden needs to be given this authority. Although the authority already exists, what with him being president. And then the follow-up is, if you can have up to 45 days where you can decide there's a national emergency and not actually enforce this part of the legislation, what exactly is gained? And what is the idea of declaring a national emergency? What does that declaration look like? And never mind any of that. This conversation about 5,000 people a day has a lot of people confused because it can be seen a couple different directions. The idea that at 5,000 people a day, there comes a automatic, well, I would call, for lack of a better piece of terminology, kill switch, that would shut down the border. So you're saying that's happening without the president deciding it? And if that's the case, are you saying that you'll allow in 5,000 people a day? You know, I did this math earlier. I don't mind doing it again. If I say there's 5,000 people a day, right? And I multiply that times 365 days in a year, that's 1.825 million. Are you saying that you're going to let in 1.8 million people into the country? Is this the argument that Republican James Lankford and Democrat Chris Murphy and so-called independent Kirsten Sinema? Is it Kirsten Sinema? Kirsten Sinema. Is this the argument that they're giving us? At 5,000 people, then the kill switch goes into effect? There's not a remain in Mexico for these 5,000 people? There's questions. There's concerns. Still going over it. I'm not paying any attention to the people who started by saying this is terrible. They never read anything about the legislation. That's ridiculous. I'm not interested in your ideology. I'm interested in the data. And then from there, we have to make decisions. Making a decision is exactly what's going to happen in the election. But before we get to a general election, we get to a primary. When you're engaged in trying to get votes, you do whatever you can to get the votes. Nikki Haley, who is desperate for the votes, Nikki Haley went to Saturday Night Live. I know what you're saying. What conservative goes to Saturday Night Live? Is there anything more hateful than Saturday Night Live to the political right? And the answer is no. Aside from MSNBC and CNN and the New York Post, the New York Post, New York Times, and the Washington Post. Yeah, aside from those places, the LA Times and Disney, there's nothing more hateful to the political right than Saturday Night Live. And Saturday Night Live is doing the cold open. They're doing a town hall with Trump in South Carolina, and they got the actor playing Trump. And then the hosts are Gayle King and Charles Barkley. Well, it's not really them. It's performers playing them. And this is what happened there on Saturday Night Live, the cold open. Now it goes on, and she gets asked a question. Nikki Haley gets asked a question. Could you tell me how the Civil War started, and does it start with an S and end in slavery? Right. And so, and she actually says, I guess I should have answered it that way the first time, and then she did the live from New York at Saturday night. This is, without a question, a smart move for her. Now, whoa up and listen to me carefully, because I'm being asked if I believe that Nikki Haley is an actual conservative. And the answer is, I did it one time. This race, I don't know what I'm looking at. I have no idea what I'm looking at with Nikki Haley in this race. What I'll tell you is that this being on Saturday Night Live is a smart move for her. It was a smart decision. She looks like she's self-effacing. She can have some fun. Is it like Bill Clinton and the saxophone moment with Arsenio? This is great if you're already running in the general, but you're not. You have to win a primary. And she is down in South Carolina by 26 points in the primary. What's the point of going on Saturday Night Live now? So they can possibly hurt Trump? Wait till Nikki Haley finds, if she should actually get the nomination, which I don't see, how much Saturday Night Live would turn on her. Was she right to go on? Absolutely. Didn't hurt her to go on. but doesn't help her with the primary voter, in my view, one bit. I'm Tony Katz. Guys, oh guys, welcome back to the show. Oh, I still haven't gotten to this woke kindergarten thing. I'm going to try and get to that right now. And don't forget, you can get everything over at TonyKatz.com. I'd appreciate it if you'd head over there. That's my email. Just join us at TonyKatz. Tony at TonyKatz.com. You can email me anything. Go to TonyKatz.com. You'll get the show sheet if you're a supporter there. All the stories that I'm going to be discussing one way or another, things I think matter, they're all over there. Videos and other things you can't get other places. As we're building that out and growing that out, I'd appreciate the support. TonyKatz.com. Be sure to check it out. And don't forget to subscribe. Rumble and YouTube and all the other places as we get back to it. Oh, man, I ran long, didn't I? I ran long in that last segment because we match it up with the radio show. That's why we have these breaks and these things that go on. Here we go. Woke kindergarten. In California, they did something called Woke Kindergarten. It's an organization where they paid teachers where they paid this group $250,000 to train teachers to confront white supremacy and racism in the classroom. And as you could only guess, grades got worse. All of this talk, all of this madness, every time that you take a look at what they mean by DEI They mean bigotry. They mean hate. They mean teaching hate. They mean separating students. They mean damaging students. It is valueless. It should be ripped out of every classroom, ripped out of every university, and ripped out of every boardroom. It should be those states and those cities that have DEI officers. The governors are wrong. The mayors are wrong. It should all be destroyed. Stop teaching hate. Stop assisting bigotry. It's as simple as that. This is Tony Katz today. Find everything at TonyKatz.com. And with that, guys, I appreciate you. I appreciate you being here, being a part of what we do. We'll be back tomorrow. We're getting better. We're getting better at the live streams. And I think we're certainly 3 days a week. Probably going to be 4 days a week. I think Fridays there won't be one. That's where I think it is right now, but that could all change as well. Once we get the whole cigar thing set up and we're just, casual about it, hell, might just do everything. But I'll catch you tomorrow. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube and on Rumble. Subscribe right now. I appreciate it. I'll catch you. Take care.